as literally a silent killer. It causes anxiety, particularly with, you know, COVID-19. It causes negative thoughts, and these things can end up manifesting into illnesses rather. And from my understanding, you know, fear doesn't add anything to any situation that you're going through. Even if what you're going through, you know, is traumatic, you know, is scary. You know, your mindset will determine how you overcome and how you get through, and will determine, you know, the journey itself. So that's why I'm really passionate about speaking, you know, coming at COVID-19 from the place of fear today. So first question, Shah, you see so much working in a hospital, and so you see the realities of life and death every day, more or less. How has that affected your faith?
So I started healthcare. I've been doing healthcare and working in the hospital for 7 years this year. And one thing that becomes very apparent very quickly when you work in the healthcare sector, particularly in nursing, is that life is, I mean, death is a part of life. You know, and I remember my first experience with death, because I come from quite a healthy family. On both sides, I had not experienced death, even the death of a grandmother, when I first entered healthcare. So I remember going into my first placement and that being the first time I had experienced death, and it's shocking, you know. But as you continue in the profession, you know, there's something very sobering about experiencing death on a daily basis like that. You know, and as Christians, I think where my confidence lies and where I draw my strength from is the fact that I know who my creator is. I have a good idea of what will happen after death. I think the fear of the unknown is what is shocking to people, Christians as well, not just people outside of the faith, but I think fear of the unknown, what happens after you die, is what fuels people's fear of death and fear of what happens after death. So for me, I would say that my faith has in fact strengthened and grown because of my experience with death, because you realize that you're not promised tomorrow, you know, and it makes you more eager to chase after your purpose and your destiny, because you realize that time is borrowed, tomorrow is not promised. What am I doing now to impact in the time that I have?
Should we be afraid of COVID-19? Look at what we're reading in the news. Look at the death tolls. Look at they shut this country down. Surely we should be afraid. Like, we've never ever experienced, you know, the world taking precautions like this. It's serious. It's serious.
My question then would be, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to answer like a Nigerian, answer a question with a question, but my question is then, what is your foundation? Do you understand? Why are you fearful? I think the thing with this whole COVID thing is that there have been many plagues before COVID. COVID is not the first plague. It's the first plague we've seen in our generation, right? And what fuels and perpetuates the fire is that we are constantly bombarded in this generation. So I think in this time when we're all in quarantine, what is different in this pandemic is media coverage, our connection with each other through social media, and just how we relate to each other, right? And the constant bombarding of information. So my answer to your question is no, we shouldn't be afraid. Just to follow up is that we in this time need to be very mindful of how much we're allowing to flood and what we're feeding ourselves on, you know, spiritually. And that doesn't just go for the Christian, we're tripart being. Do you understand? Whatever faith, denomination you're in, you know that we have our mind or our spirit, you know, and our flesh. So my thing is, what are you feeding yourself in this time to perpetuate fear in yourself? I watch the news as a young Christian because I need to be abreast of what is going on, and as a healthcare professional I need to know. But also I limit the time that I'm sitting in front of that news and constantly being bombarded. And it's interesting because even the frontline workers are scared in this pandemic, and I'm talking serious levels of fear. You know, you see us out there and we're brave-faced and we're getting it, but I'm telling you, some of my colleagues are shook. You should hear the discussions that happen behind the scenes. They're still human. Do you understand? But you have a choice as an individual of what your stance is going to be. Are you going to allow fear to consume you, or are you going to stand up and be bold? Do you understand? And I think that it's just very, very important that we monitor and shield ourselves from being overly bombarded with negative information all the time. I had one colleague in the staff room. So imagine I'm on a 13-hour shift. We've come to the staff room. During my break, I like peace and quiet because my job is very busy and it's draining on all levels. It's draining on your physical body, it's draining on your mental, it's draining on your emotional. Do you understand? And as a Christian, for me, I'm always praying for the patients that I look after. Not outright, but I'm saying, Lord, please, you know, give me strength, give them strength, praying for their healing, right? So that's draining, you can imagine.
Yeah.
On my break, I want silence. One of the midwives come in, and she's talking to an anaesthetist in the room. Oh my gosh, have you seen this coronavirus website? It gives you updates minute by minute about what's going on in the globe. There's been 5,000 deaths in Italy. There was just 200 more in Spain. I said, why? So after about 10 minutes, she can see me looking at her like, girl, girl, we're on break. And then she is instilling fear in the other colleagues in the staff room. So we got into a whole discussion, and I'm like, you guys need to be mindful as healthcare professionals of what you're feeding yourself. At the end of the day, for me personally, I have no choice but to exercise faith.
Right.
I have no choice but to exercise faith because I'm frontline whether I like it or not. Do you understand? So I am forced to exercise faith. I'm like, you see what you're doing there? Yeah, reading the updates every 5 minutes, and we've already got COVID patients that we are dealing with. How is that helping you to do your job right now?
It doesn't.
Sometimes, do you understand? Sometimes we do it to ourselves. How does bombarding yourself with negative information all the time allow you to do your job?
You said that you have no choice but to have faith because you're frontline. But you do have a choice because you've got nurses who are choosing to panic.
That's true.
So
yeah,
faith is a choice.
Yeah,
faith is a choice, right?
Yeah,
and faith is a mindset, and faith is a mindset that, you know, that is taken on through a relationship with God. So kudos to you, well done, because not every frontline staff member is doing that. As you just said, you yourself have like a personal and a relatable story when it comes to being, you know, high risk. Do you mind sharing that with us? And if so, how do you deal with that? And like, does that not raise any concerns?
I've got some family members on here, so you guys are already aware, but I was diagnosed with asthma at the age of, I believe it was about 4 or 5, and I'm 29, will be 30 this year, and it's been an ongoing battle, but I'm believing God for my healing this year.
Amen.
But because it's a respiratory illness, that puts me in the high risk category. And that's why I said in the previous question that I have no choice but to exercise faith. Not just because I'm frontline, but also because of the health conditions that I deal with. So for those of you who don't, I'm sure everyone knows what asthma is, but for those of you who do not know what asthma is it's like an inflammatory response of the lungs to antigens. So things like dust or pet hair, all of these other things. So it causes your lungs to inflame and essentially for your bronchioles to close up, making it difficult for you to breathe. Now you can imagine with a respiratory illness going around, COVID, which is putting people in ICU with respiratory distress. So you can imagine that I'm in the high risk category already. Now, for me personally, I have chosen not to stop work because I'm sure everybody is aware that we're under enormous amounts of pressure in the healthcare service already. And because I'm young and I'm a Christian, I've decided to exercise my faith levels and just go to work anyway. Now, for some people, that will be, well, you're not being smart, you're not abiding by the guidelines, blah, blah, blah. But for me personally, as in work according to your faith, as for me, my faith is up. Do you understand? So for me, I'm quite happy to go frontline and do what needs to be done, because I have every faith. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure I've had COVID already. Because frontline, we're working with people, you're touching them, people are coughing on you, you're breathing their air, and you have no choice but to, do you understand? But to battle. So,
you gotta help.
To breathe. So, you know, and I'm sure we've heard about all the national shortages of personal protective equipment, and that's a very real struggle. You know, we're taking care of people with no protection on, no mask, no gloves, no hood, no visor. Do you understand? The NHS can't keep up, let's be honest. So for me, I'm exercising my faith. As I'm going in, I'm working. Yes, I'm taking the precautions, using PPE as and when I can, you know. But the only thing separating from me...
PPE?
Yeah, PPE is personal protective equipment, sorry.
Okay.
That's the abbreviation, sorry.
Okay.
You know, but I'm also walking into work prayed up. You understand? Fasted up. I'm like, Lord, you're my barrier. I have nothing else. Where else do I go? Do you understand? But Christ. So I think it's a very, but also aside from just Christianity aside, you know, there is a strength in your mental mindset, right? So if you believe that you're defeated, you're already defeated. Do you understand? But if you go in with positive mindset and positive, it's a very real thing, you know. It's a very real struggle on and battle on both fronts, you know, physically and spiritually. So for me personally, that's what I'm dealing with. But I've decided to keep fighting, because there are people out there who are ill and really need help, you know. So I've decided to fight the battle.
And you said something which is what makes what you're doing not crazy. You said work according to your faith, sis. Now, I know your faith personally, because we've been on our faith journey since our early 20s together.
Yeah.
So I know where your faith level is. The scripture that comes to mind, he will do exceedingly, abundantly, far above all you can ask or think, according to the power that worketh in you. Let me tell you, Sade got some power. Like literally, I'm getting excited. Just, do you know what I mean? Like meditating on that. Do you understand?
That's true.
So it is about faith levels. So if you know, if you are engaging in fear, it's an indication that your faith levels are not high. Do you understand? So
I agree.
I really want to challenge those that are listening that this is Sade. Her faith levels, by God's grace. I'm not boasting. We're not boasting. Do you understand? We said it's no humility. I'm just happy.
Yeah.
Do you understand? For my sis. Her faith levels are at a place where she can look COVID-19 in the eye during work, though she has her own health conditions. So I really want to challenge those of us watching, like, what can I do? Where is my faith level, and how can I? Do you understand? And that can only be by, you know, getting closer to God. That can only be by, you know, building a stronger relationship with God. That can only be by deciding, being more intentional about what your intake is. Like,
exactly.
Sade and I, we listen to, we read, we digest more of the Word of God.
And we try to.
Than news. Like you said, we watch the news, but only to keep abreast. Not that it's our daily bread. Our
source and our daily bread. Exactly. Because you can't continually bombard your spirit with junk and then wonder why you're scared. Because you're feeding the fear. That's what is happening. You are feeding the fear. You're feeding it. And you know what though? But sis, with that said, right? The thing is, during this time of isolation, it's so easy for us to spend our time idly. We were talking about this either this morning or yesterday. It's so easy. And I was speaking to one of my boys earlier on the phone. Daniel, shout out Dan, because I know he's on.
Yeah.
And
Plant Ministry and that.
plant ministries. But I was speaking to him earlier, and I'm saying, like, it's so easy to get carried away. Like, I can't even watch Netflix freely right now during this time because my spirit man is not settled. God had to speak to me like, Sade, this is not the time to meditate on Netflix. Just because you're not watching the news and it's not feeding fear. Netflix is feeding other things. You feel me? Woo. Netflix is feeding.
You want to take it there, sis?
Netflix is feeding our spirit. Gluttony is feeding our spirit. I can't stop eating. I need to fast.
Listen.
What are we really doing with our time? Seriously, we're in isolation. Yes. What are you doing with it? Are you productive? Do you understand?
Listen, sis.
No struggle with this.
Yeah, I really want to challenge all my brothers and sisters out there in the Lord that, this is the time more than ever before to get stuck into the word, because this is the time for us to rise up and intercede on behalf of the nation. It is so easy right now to literally squander this time on social media.
That's right.
And eat rubbish, but we're being called to fast and pray for this nation and stand in the gap, pray for healing in this land, and pray this COVID-19 out.